The topic for this webinar is writing post-school outcome goal statements. How to write appropriate, measurable post-secondary goals based upon age-appropriate transition assessments related to training, education, employment, and where appropriate, independent living skills. If we take a look at the transition services flowchart, we know that we must start with the age-appropriate transition assessment. And from those assessments, we will figure out the student's needs, strengths, preferences, and interests. And that leads us to writing the measurable post-school goals. Identifying post-secondary goals is essential in developing a transition component that reflects students' needs, strengths, and desires. Think of it as backward planning. You start with the proposed outcomes, the post-school goals, and then are developing annual IEP goals and transition services that will support students in meeting those outcomes. A measurable post-secondary goal is a goal that can be counted or measurable. It is a goal that provides an outcome for the student, not just the process. There should be at least one goal for education, training, employment for all students. And some students, based on assessment information, may require a goal for independent living. When writing post-secondary goals, you should ask these questions. Where is the student going to work or engage in productive activities after graduation? Where and how is the student going to continue to learn and or develop skills after graduation? Where is the student going to live, and how is he or she going to access adult services, participate in the community, and have fun after graduation? This formula provides guidelines for writing a measurable post-secondary goal. After graduation, after high school, or upon completion of high school, that clearly states that the activity will occur after graduation. The student will, behavior, and then where and how. These are the components of a measurable post-secondary goal. So let's just look at a few different examples. Here we have Gemario. These 4 bullet points come from different types of transition assessments or different type of academic assessments or information that we've gathered on Gemario. He demonstrated proficiency on all of his end-of-course exams for 10th and 11th grade. He did have an audiological evaluation as part of his 3-year evaluation. The informal interview with his family in preparation for the IEP meeting, his mother noted that she had concerns about his lack of concern for legal consequences. And then the self-directed search showed that he has strengths in the area of mechanical work. So knowing these components from transition assessment data, we should be able to write some post-secondary goals for Gemario. So for education, we have, upon graduation from high school, Gemario will attend Central Piedmont Community College and participate in the Auto Body Repair Certificate Program, meeting requirements to attain an entry-level technician certificate. This has all the components needed for a post-secondary goal. Also, the employment goal, upon graduation from high school, Gemario will work part-time as a shop helper in his uncle's shop to gain experience in the automotive repair industry. Both of these goals are measurable and occur after high school. The expectation or behavior is explicit. The goals are based on age-appropriate transition assessment, and it identifies an outcome, not a process. Remember that the independent living goal does not just mean your residential independence. It could be community access, leisure, functional living skills, etc. So after graduation, Gemario will follow the laws of his community, demonstrating an understanding of the need for laws to ensure his and others' safety. And also, he had an interest in welding. So you could think about independent living goal number 2 having something to do with the safety of that particular job. Again, the activity is after high school. It's clearly stated it will occur after high school. The goal is measurable and can be observed. The expectation is explicit. The goal is based on age-appropriate transition assessment, and it's an outcome, not a process. Now let's take a look at Lisette. Here are just a few examples of transition assessments that Lisette has undergone, which include information from state-mandated assessment, adaptive behavior checklists, and an informal community-based instruction observation. Transition assessment data can also include progress monitoring data, student preferences, etc. So, the results shown here. She is performing below average in math, reading, and written expression. Her adaptive behavior checklist says that she has acquired many age-appropriate behaviors for her to live independently and to function safely and appropriately in her life, but she still needs support in this area. And then her community-based instruction task analysis checks give some of that information. So this is information gathered over time. It reflects her strengths, interests, and preferences. The data are all age appropriate, and it's from multiple sources and places. So from this information, we should be able to generate some post-secondary goals for Lisette. Upon graduation from high school, Lisette will participate in weekly instruction on independent living skills at the local independent living center in her community. This will occur after graduation. It's measurable. The expectation or behavior is explicit. The goals are based on age-appropriate transition assessment, and it identifies an outcome, not a process. For employment, after high school, Lisette will work on campus part-time in the food court at UNC Charlotte with supports from VR and the staff at the university. Here, the activity occurs after high school. The goals are measurable. The expectation or behavior is explicit. It's based on age-appropriate transition assessment, and it's an outcome, not a process. For independent living, remember this is not just about residential independence. There were other things Lisette needed to live independently. Upon completion of high school, Lisette will utilize public transportation, including the taxis with time-limited supports provided through vocational rehabilitation, or another adult agency. These are just examples. Again, this activity will occur after high school. The goal is measurable. The expectation or behavior is explicit. It's based on age-appropriate transition assessment, and it identifies an outcome, not a process. Our last case study, we'll take a look at Lily. These are just a few examples of transition assessments that Lily has undergone, which include information from anecdotal records, portfolio assessments, and a physical therapy evaluation. Again, we could include things like progress monitoring data, student preferences, etc. All of this information has been gathered over time. It reflects her interests, strengths, and preferences. It's multiple sources and places, and the data sources are age appropriate. Lily is awake for approximately 6 hours in the 24-hour period. She enjoys receiving verbal and tactile attention from her family members and caregivers. She accesses the general education curriculum through extension activities. She relies on others to move her wheelchair and place her in a chair, stander, or mat for all activities. So based on this assessment information, we should be able to write some post-secondary goals for Lily. For education and training, we have after graduation, Lily will participate in a center-based program with an adult curriculum focus on gaining maximum social communication, daily living, and vocational skills. This activity will occur after graduation. It is measurable. The expectation is explicit. It's based on age-appropriate transition assessment, and it is an outcome, not a process. After graduation, for employment, Lily will participate in a center-based program with an adult curriculum receiving services to increase her stamina and mobility to prepare her for work. Again, it meets the criteria that it will occur after high school. The goal is stated measurably. Participate can be observed as occurring or not. And the goal is focused on Lily's preparation for employment. So for independent living, Lily will use an AC device at home and at the center-based program to communicate her wants, needs, and desires and to interact with her environment more independently. Here, it occurs after graduation. The goal is measurable. The expectation is explicit. It's based on age-appropriate transition assessment, and it's stated as outcomes for Lily after high school, not activities or processes towards the outcome. Okay, let's practice just a little more. Write a post-secondary goal in employment for the following student Carlos. Carlos is 19 years old. He has emotional and behavioral disabilities. His interpersonal skills and work ethic are strengths for him. He enjoys working with other young men, doing manual labor, and listening to loud music while he works. He exhibits strengths in the area of mechanical work. Career assessments indicate he is likely to be a serious, dedicated employee. At home, he fixes appliances around the house, which his mother appreciates. So let's take just a few minutes using the formula listed and write a post-secondary goal in employment for Carlos. Did you come up with something similar? Here, after graduation, Carlos will work as a repairman for a local appliance store. The activity occurs after graduation and it's clearly stated. The goal is measurable and can be observed. The expectation or behavior is explicit. It's based on age-appropriate transition assessment and it identifies an outcome, not a process. Now, we have to mention aligning annual IEP goals. Annual IEP goals are included in the IEP that support the student's progress towards post-secondary goals. So here are the questions to ask. What skills and knowledge must the student attain this academic year that are necessary for achieving those identified post-secondary goals or goals for after graduation? What skills and knowledge does the student currently have that will support their post-secondary goal? This formula provides guidance for writing a measurable annual IEP goal. The components included in this formula are recommended as best practice, but based on your district requirement, you may or may not include all of these components. For example, given blank, which could be the condition, the teaching strategy, direct instruction, modeling, peer tutoring, etc. The student will blank, and then the criteria is how many times, what percentage, and then the time frame would be the completion date of that particular goal. And remember, this is just a helpful formula to help you think about writing that measurable annual IEP goal. So let's go back to Lisette. Remember that her post-secondary education and training goal was that she would participate in weekly instruction on independent living skills at the local independent living center in her community. This is her post-secondary goal, or her goal for after she graduates. So an annual IEP goal that would be included in Lisette's IEP would be something like this. Given small group instruction on hand washing, a task analysis, and self-monitoring sheet, Lisette will demonstrate how to wash her hands with 100% accuracy as measured by the number of correct steps completed on the task analysis during the duration of the IEP. This is an independent living skill that we will work on with Lisette this year to help her get to that post-secondary goal listed above. For Lisette's employment goal, she was to work on campus part-time in the food court. So then for an annual IEP goal, we could say that given direct instruction for completing a job application, guided practice, and personal information, Lisette will complete an application with 100% accuracy by the end of the second school semester. So this particular annual IEP goal will be what we will work on this year to help us get to that post-secondary employment goal of having her work on campus. See how the annual IEP goal helps the student get to that post-secondary employment goal by learning skills this year. So for example, if a student's goal is to attend post-secondary education, such as a 4-year university, having goals in the IEP to work on math skills and reading skills will help that student get to those post-secondary goals. And finally, her independent living goal was to utilize public transportation. So this year, during the duration of the IEP, we will give a bus schedule adapted with pictures. Lisette will select the correct time and stop for 5 scenarios of activities presented to her with 95% accuracy or better by December of the current school year. See how this IEP goal gives us something to work on this year that will help Lisette get to that post-secondary independent living goal.